Good morning, saints and ain'ts. This is Revelation. We're getting ready to get into part 4 of martial law. As I stated in part 3, the United States is of special interest to Satan. The reason being is that our Constitution, regardless of whether our politicians and our groups such as the Congress follows what is installed in the Constitution, nevertheless our Constitution is based on the Word of God, based on the Bible, and that alone makes this country a target of Satan. So, as we stated, we're looking at some of the things, some of the people, some of the organizations that Satan is using. They fall under the title of the Illuminati, the shadow government, the deep state, etc., etc. But it's all prevalent to what is called the 13 dynasty or 13 bloodlines. Anyway, in the year 2006, we had, listen to this, Military Order 1. It came into focus. This order, which has already been implemented as far as on the books, this order suspends the rights of anyone classified as a terrorist. Now, interesting enough, some of those who have been classified as terrorists are people that you wouldn't even think would be on that list, such as veterans. American veterans are on the list of being terrorists. Christians, okay? These are just a few of those who have been added to this list and classified as terrorists. Now, Rex 84, which was the readiness exercise in 1984, was an exercise conducted by the military and local police forces in major U.S. cities. And they came under the title of Jade Helm 15. Now, what was the purpose? The purpose, basically, is the total suspension of the Constitution for all who are deemed enemies of the state, and we're going to get back to it. Now, this is under the Executive Order 12656. This is all based on the continuity of government. I mean, these are things that our politicians and leaders and others have been doing and implementing, and the general public pays no attention to it whatsoever. Like, okay, yeah. But anyway, FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, is an agency of the United States Department of Homeland Security created by Presidential Reorganization Plan Number 3 of 1978. Its purpose, so-called purpose, is to assist and aid in the event of disaster anywhere in America. Yet, here's a statement. Now, this is a statement by the Department of Homeland Security regarding Jade Helm 15 and other so-called exercises that have been implemented throughout the country. Desensitization exercises all across the U.S. We're being prepared for mass civil unrest in major U.S. cities. DOD, Department of Defense, will be expected to help when requested. This is a statement by the Department of Homeland Security. They literally state that the whole purpose of these exercises, because number one, military personnel are not, under our Constitution, under our laws, are not to be utilized in the United States of America. These exercises were unconstitutional because they were basically the military, specifically special forces, so they're not playing, training with municipal law enforcement, state law enforcement, county law enforcement, supposedly as an exercise to be utilized against terrorists. But they state right here themselves, this is the Department of Homeland Security saying that the purpose of these exercises is to prepare for mass civil unrest in major cities of the U.S. going on. FEMA has over 800 camps, as you heard me state before. They're also called re-education centers, and they're in America. The interesting thing about a lot of this is when you look at the Walmarts. The Walmarts were founded by Sam Walton. Sam Walton, during World War II, was in Army intelligence. But he had a pretty unique command, especially for somebody who was no higher in rank than a captain. He was the commandant or the commander of the internment camps. Now, of course, we know about the Japanese internment camps, but there were also Italian American and German American internment camps that very little or nothing is ever spoken of. Now, these individuals who were interned in these camps, their rights, they were American citizens, and their rights were totally suspended. So martial law in effect was implemented on them. They had no rights, and they were placed in these internment camps, which were not nice places. Well, right now, FEMA has 800 of these internment camps. Now, Sam Walton, as you know, as I stated, he's the founder of Walmart. Walmart's closed 260 stores under the pretense of having plumbing problems. Okay, now some say that they are drilling tunnels, and some people have written the proof of that, whereby they can transport individuals with, underground from one location to another without them having to come out in the open. I'm not totally sure about that. I have seen videos and read things that pertain to it. But like I said, that isn't concrete to me. But what is concrete is that some of these Walmarts that were closed have been, let's say, renovated and have been turned into FEMA internment camps. This is definite. Also, it is known that with all these stores closing, of course, individuals were let go. As far as employees, they were let go from their positions. But at the same time, Walmart was hiring 30,000 former military personnel for security purposes. Okay? Anyway, so the concept behind so many camps is, in case of a mass event or martial law, the camps are supposed to be safe havens for food and shelter. And that's why I stated in the our last installment of martial law that people, based on their plan, people will run to these FEMA camps under martial law, under these specific conditions, because that's where your food will be. See, that is one reason why they want to establish a cashless society. It's not to make things easier for you, it's to make you more controllable. Because with that implant, they can basically do it now, but they can just stop whatever monies you have in the banks or any other monetary system. They can just stop it. They can literally erase it. So you would be in a situation where you don't have money, which is one reason why these survivalists are literally saying, buy gold. But think about this. How much gold is the average American going to buy, when the dollar finally is thrown in the trash, which it is coming, okay? The bubble of our economy has been set and is programmed to pop. I mean, I'm not going to prophesy a day and a time, but it is coming, okay? So anyway, now, the interesting thing is there are two things that you see the Illuminati using, and I only started recently really paying attention to it. The thought had hit me about these things, but I'm really focusing on them now because of how I know that MK Ultra is being utilized now, today, under the undercover, very subtle, but it's being utilized. Now think of these two things. One, we had this influx of the shooting of black Americans by police. Now somebody might say, well, that's always been a situation, but now it is so prevalent. Now it's being, videotaped because these cops have these cameras and stuff like that. So it's being seen, but it's not being stopped. Now here's the interesting thing. Think about this. There was this one situation in particular that really caught my attention and that's what made me start thinking about this, was the case of Charles Kinsley. He was a black mental health therapist, and he was literally seeking to help one of his patients. This was in North Miami. This was July 18, 2016. The man was laying on the ground with his hands up, literally saying, "Don't shoot." His patient was sitting down by his feet, and he was playing with a toy truck, which is why some said that he had a gun. Now, when the police came, this one cop was literally like 150 feet away, and there were other cops closer. This cop, who was furthest away, he shot Mr. Kinsley. Okay, and when he shot him, and the police advanced on the set, Mr. Kinsley literally said, "I'm shot. Why did you shoot me?" Now listen to this, and you got to really pay close attention to this. The officer said, "I don't know." So when Mr. Kinsley asked him, "Why did you shoot me?" he said, "I don't know." And that stuck with me, and I started thinking about it. Well, what would be gained out of this continuation of agitating the situation between the black community specifically and police? The hope of a race riot. See, a race riot, especially, was all over the country, similar to what happened during the 60s, 67 in particular. On a mass scale, this would be every reason to implement martial law. See, they're literally looking for reasons to implement martial law. The only thing that is hindering the implementation of martial law is that in the United States of America, there are 300 million legally registered guns, okay? Now, if you notice, in every disaster, whether it was Hurricane Katrina or the one down in Texas or even in Puerto Rico, what you find is that the main thing they wanted to do was confiscate the guns. They went into areas that, weren't even really devastated by these natural phenomena. They went in these areas and were still confiscating guns, okay? Because that is the whole intended purpose, to disarm America. Because under the Second Amendment, you have, as an American citizen, the right to bear arms against all enemies, foreign and domestic, okay? So they know you're not going to take these guns from these people without a big problem happening. So what else are they implementing? Well, think about this. When you think about these school shootings, you would maybe think, well, I would think that they would be more or less in urban areas. Why? Because you have more higher concentration of drugs, you have illegal guns, and you have violence. Because drugs, violence, they all run hand in hand, trust me. Drug dealing, things of that nature. Okay, so now, that's where you would think that these school shootings would be, in the urban, in the ghetto specifically areas. No, they're in these middle class, upper middle class, white neighborhoods. And these are white kids doing the shooting. Now, you say, wow, what is the purpose of that? And there is a purpose. See, In organized law enforcement, even in the military, you learn that when you have similar situations or events, that forms a pattern. So you have a pattern here being formed. What is the purpose of this pattern? Well, if these shootings per se were in the urban areas, it'd be covered by the news to a certain extent. Some things be said, but it wouldn't have the impact that it is being presented because it is in these better neighborhoods, so-called. So that means we need to amend the Second Amendment and the gun laws because we're not saying it like this, but this is what they're saying. These white kids are killing white kids with these guns. We got to do something, okay? And that's all a plan of Illuminati. Why are these cops shooting these black people for literally no logical, legal reasons? Stopped you because you failed to signal for return. You had a tail light out. Just like these arbitrary, ridiculous reasons. And why are these white kids doing all this shooting? I believe, like I said, this is my opinion. If I have an opinion about something that's mine, I'll say it's my opinion. I won't say God said to me. This was my opinion based on the facts, but facts are subject to change. My opinion is that by utilizing this and by implementing gun laws, which give them the right to come into people's homes and take their weapons, America is being disarmed, and that's what is necessary in order for the plans to be implemented. See, remember, Satan is not all powerful. So things can interfere with his plans, and things have occurred to interfere with the plans of Illuminati. Just for instance, the election of Donald Trump. Now, I'm not looking to start an argument or anything like this, but I have to say this because this is what I believe. Once again, this is my opinion. Donald Trump is a buffoon, okay? I mean, if it wasn't for his family's money that backs him, everything he tried, from the university to the vodka and everything else, everything that he implements generally fails. And it's only that, he's born rich and he has money, it keeps him going. But here's the thing, saints. The Lord spoke to the prophet Balaam through a jackass. Now, I'm not calling the man a jackass, I'm just saying, So God can use anything or anyone. Now, Donald Trump is not a globalist. Therefore, regardless of what may be working against him, he is not in line with America losing its sovereignty as a nation and becoming a part of the global community with our rights being totally taken away, and we are literally placed under the governmentship of other countries. Okay? He's not with that. So we can see that was a deterrent. There's this pastor, I think his name is Lindsey Williams, and he has a lot of friends who are the elite. And he literally had some of his friends state that Donald Trump wasn't part of the plan. Hillary Clinton was supposed to become the president, okay? Because she is, Lady Linda Rothschild literally said, this is my girl, okay? She is totally, the Clintons are totally, absolutely, 100% with the plan, okay? So Donald Trump wasn't really part of the plan. Anyway, going on, the Illuminati are experts, and you heard me state this in prior chapters of our study. The Illuminati are experts on specifically two things. One, creating a problem. Then, two, coming up with solutions for the problems they created. Okay? Why? Because by creating these problems, they install fear. Like, I'm not going to get into it, but like 9/11, saints and ain'ts, if ever there was a false flag, you have it right there. And now individuals are really starting to look very hard at it. Because, see, as I stated, when you take and make something so traumatic, or you use big numbers, whether it's millions and billions of dollars, and millions of people, or billions, your mind loses sight of it. It's too big. The average mind has not been trained to absorb that type of data, so we reject it. Right offhand. Oh no, that can't be. And so these people, used by Satan, they use fear as Satan does. Fear will cause people to surrender their rights in exchange for supposed safety. So in other words, that's, like I said, that's the whole concept behind. They believe that people will flee to these FEMA internment camps, re-education centers, because they say, I don't care, take my rights, just save me. And that's what the devil utilizes. Anyway, I'm not going to get into the thousands of coffin liners or the FEMA trains, but hear this. Now listen to this. Homeland Security has purchased over 2.2 billion rounds of ammunition and 2,700 armored personnel carriers. Now you say, okay, so what's your point? First of all, this is enough ammo to fight a war for approximately 7 years, and enough carriers to allocate 50 per state. Now, the problem here is Homeland Security is not geared or designed to fight a war. So why are they stockpiling enough ammunition to fight a 7-year war? Think about it. Now, we don't have a lot of time left. I want to get through this so I can get into what God has done and what He's doing. But like I said, there's things you need to know. The UN, which is a tool of the Illuminati, a tool of this New World Order. Interesting enough, some of us had not even heard of Agenda 21, which came about at a UN meeting, okay, in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Now, one of the main things that was brought out is what's called sustainable development. Now, I want to explain that a little bit. In 1992, at Rio de Janeiro, 106 countries came together for the UN Conference on Environment and Development. Agenda 21 is stated. Now, this is the concept. So we're just talking about this, not to take it seriously. We're just kicking back and forth. Agenda 21 is stated as a voluntary action plan that offers suggestions for local, state, and national governments to control poverty and pollution and conserve national resources in the 21st century. Interesting. Now, interesting enough, here is a statement from that same meeting. So we're not doing anything, harmful or nothing to hurt you. But now here's a statement from that meeting that you can Google and read it and see it. Anyway, it states, the present vast overpopulation, now far beyond the world's carrying capacity, cannot be answered by future reduction in the birth rate due to contraception, sterilization, and abortion, but must be met in the present by the reduction of numbers presently existing. This must be done by whatever means necessary. That was stated at this meeting. Okay, and our President George Bush was there at this specific meeting. Now, I'm almost finished, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this in, but I'm going to give it a kick. The interesting thing also is that, well, actually, I got a little more. But anyway, in Elbert County, Georgia, you have what are called the Georgia Guidestones. And they're like the Stonehenge of the modern day, right? The person who commissioned its construction identified himself as R.C. Christian, but it became apparent later that wasn't his real name. He said he represented a group of men who wanted to offer directions to humanity. Now, the very first commandment on these stones is 4 stones, 3 stand up, 1 coming across. The very first command is maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Okay? Now, in January 17, 1961, in his departing speech, President Eisenhower warned Americans concerning the military-industrial complex, also known as the secret government or deep state. He literally told people, be careful. You know, I don't know how much of a puppet he was of it, but he got that off. He literally said, be aware. There is a hidden agenda behind everything that's happening. In April 27, 1961, President John F. Kennedy, in his speech, which was entitled The President and the Press, stated, now listen to this, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free society, and we are as a people inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and secret proceedings. Now, some surmise that what he was implying was, communism. But wait a minute. He specifically said that we as a people are opposed to secret societies, secret oaths, and secret events coming about. Okay? And I read the whole speech, and it was phenomenal. And I believe that that was the last nail in his coffin, although he wasn't assassinated into 63. Still, I believe that that really let these people and the so-called powers that be know he wasn't with the plan. Neither was his brother, Robert F. Kennedy. They were not going along with the agenda. And it would just seem that they would, because they were born into one of the 13 bloodline families. I mean, Joseph Kennedy, he made his money as a mobster. He was a bootlegger. He was dealing in partners with Frank Costello, people like Lucky Luciano, and all these type folks. And so it was just given that. Another thing is, the mob helped put John F. Kennedy in office. They did. But once again, God can intervene, and he did, because this man turned from his warrior attitude, his Illuminati upbringing, and literally said no. He was against the Vietnam War, which prior he was for. He was secretly in communications with the president of Russia. He was secretly in communications with Castro after the Bay of Pigs incident, and he literally said that he wanted to take the CIA and splinter it and just throw the pieces to the wind. That didn't happen. So when you look at it, and this is based in years of studying the different conspiracy theories and whatnot. And, everybody, first they say, oh, you can blame Castro because, he found out about how the CIA was working with the mob to assassinate him. And so he turned the tables on, Kennedy, and he assassinated Kennedy. Then you had the elements of the mob, which is definitely, you know, that Sam Giancana, Carlos Marcel from the New Orleans area, who was a very powerful Don, and Santos Traficante, the Florida Don, that they all were involved. So they said, well, the mob did it. Then you look at the military-industrial complex, and you had people whose names came up, like Lyndon B. Johnson, good old Herbert Hoover, the FBI and others that were involved. So they said, well, they did this, and the CIA did. George Bush, who at that time said he was not a part of the CIA, I'm talking about George Bush Sr., he was present in Dallas on the day that Kennedy was assassinated. When first asked, he said, no, he don't recall being there. And then later he said, oh yeah, I was there. He was there. There are other elements involved here, such as Lee Harvey Oswald. He's supposed to be this nut, this communist individual who was against, capitalism, against the United States. Lee Harvey Oswald, as a lot of these documents that are being declassified, have literally points out, he was an agent or associate of the CIA. When he was in the Marine Corps, he was literally located in the Philippines on a very high classified area that dealt with the stealth planes, okay? And just the things that he had knowledge of. And now here's this guy, all of a sudden he said, well, look, my mom's leaving me, so I need to get out of the Marine Corps. Sure, no problem. I don't want to stay in America anymore, so I'm going to go to Russia. Okay, sure, no problem. You know what, I don't want to stay in Russia. I think I'm going to go back to the United States. Sure, no problem. Saints, ain'ts, come on, okay? That just don't happen. Anyway, and then like we had Jack Ruby, who had mob ties, and he wasn't just a guy that was running this carousel bar, strip joint. He had serious ties. He came from Chicago, and he had connection with the Chicago mob, and now he was there in Dallas. And anyway, make a long story short, even Lee Harvey Oswald, his father had mob connections. It's just, and it just goes on and on and on. But saints, we're out of time, and I totally guarantee that in part 5 we will conclude what the devil is doing. But you need to know, and the conclusion is going to be a real capper. Trust me, okay? We're going to talk about something that is spoken of in the Bible, and it's here. It's here, saints, and that's the beheading of individuals who go against the system. But that's all I'm going to say about that. So, but I'm going to tell you, it's a real capper. Meanwhile, as always, you know how we end these things, because I want to stimulate thought. Know the words you hear, and hear only the words you know. Saints, I'm not trying to exhaust any topic. I just want, by the power of God, to stimulate thought, to make you stop and think about these things that you may never heard about, therefore you couldn't think about what you never heard about, or things that you may have heard something of but you just dismissed it. Now is the time to stop dismissing what's going on around you. Some of these things naturally are too late for us to do anything about. So all we can do is pray and trust God. But there are a lot of things that we can do. Matter of fact, the body of Christ has been called for such a time as this. The only thing that is withholding the appearance of the Antichrist is this Holy Spirit, as he is doing his special work through the body of Christ. That's the only thing that's withholding this. So we're here for a purpose, and we need to get our job done so we can get out of here. Okay, saints? So anyway, as always, be blessed to be a blessing to others. Amen? God bless you.